If you're selling a home in Arizona and your house has been on the market for more than 30 days, or maybe it just needs some repairs, some upgrades, there's a pretty good chance that you'll receive a cash offer from an investor. And I know that this can be considered a negative, but the reality is that a lot of investor offers are very smooth transactions and can be a really great option for a seller who's looking for convenience, quick closing, and just an easy sale. So if you've accepted an offer or if you are considering accepting a cash offer, there's just a handful of things that I think that you should know to protect yourself and make sure that you're working with the right buyer before you accept that offer. So that's what we're going to talk about today in this video. Let's jump into it. I'm Taylor with the Slevin Real Estate Group here in Arizona, and I have worked on hundreds, if not thousands, of investor transactions throughout my real estate career. In fact, investment real estate has really been the foundation that my career was built on. I started out working for an investment company where all we did was make cash offers on different homes that either needed work done, maybe they had been on the market for a long time, or maybe we just had a buyer who was looking for that type of property. The company that I worked for handled transactions with integrity, but over the years, I've also seen investors take advantage of sellers simply because those sellers didn't know what their rights were or what questions to ask. So I've put together this video to walk you through the biggest things every Arizona home seller should know before they accept a cash offer from an investor. Investment real estate is really big here in Arizona, and we have a lot of investment companies and a lot of different type of investors. We have fix and flippers, who are people that buy a home, renovate or update it, and then resell it for a profit. We have rental investors who purchase homes to use as long-term rentals or short-term rentals like Airbnb or Vrbo. And then we have wholesalers. If you're not familiar with wholesaling, it's when someone makes an offer to buy your home and then sells their rights from the purchase contract to another buyer for a profit. So for example, let's say someone offers to buy your home for $250,000. They may then assign their rights to that contract to another investor for $260,000. Most of the terms on the contract, like the closing date and the title company, are going to stay the same, but the original buyer earns the $10,000 difference, and this money is commonly referred to as the assignment or the wholesale fee. As the seller, you still receive the $250,000 you originally agreed to, and the closing still occurs as planned. The only difference is that the person buying your home at closing may be someone different than the buyer listed on the original purchase contract. Wholesaling tends to get a bad reputation because, unfortunately, there's some investors out there who don't operate ethically, and if they can't sell the home to someone else during the inspection period, they'll cancel the contract or ask for a price reduction after their offer has already been accepted. But the reality is there's nothing wrong with accepting an offer from a wholesaler as long as you're working with a good investor. And although good ethical investors are not as common, they are out there. So in order to make sure that you're working with a grade A investor, there's a few extra questions and due diligence that you want to ask and make sure that you're doing before you accept an offer from them. First things first, there's a few things to get clarity on before you accept their offer. Number one is going to be ask what their plan is for the property. Do they intend to buy the home themselves, or do they plan to assign or wholesale the contract to someone else? If they do plan to wholesale it, ask if they already have a buyer who's looking in that area and qualified to purchase your home. Make sure that your home is a good fit for that buyer's needs, right? Do they know that this buyer is looking for a home that matches your home's criteria? It's also a good idea to ask how many wholesale transactions they've successfully closed in the past 6 months. The goal here isn't that we're trying to interrogate them. It's simply that we want to make sure that you're working with someone who has a plan and a track record for actually getting the transaction to the closing table so that you're not left frustrated after a cancellation comes in for no apparent reason. Number two, ask for proof of funds. The buyer should be able to show you that they have the financial ability to purchase your home, whether they intend to wholesale it or buy it themselves. The proof of funds might be a bank statement, or it could be something from their private or hard money lender if they're using financing to purchase. Don't be afraid to ask questions either to the lender or to the buyer or their agent. Your agent can even call that lender and ask how many transactions have they completed? Are the funds currently available, or does the lender see any issues with closing on the sale? The goal with these questions is simply to verify that you're working with someone who can actually close on the purchase of the home. Number three, ask about the earnest money deposit. There isn't a required earnest money amount in Arizona, but we generally like to see around 1% of the purchase price. In most cases, the larger the earnest money deposit, the more committed that buyer is. So don't be afraid to negotiate this to be a bigger amount than what was originally offered to you from the buyer. Also ask when that earnest money becomes non-refundable. If the buyer can cancel multiple weeks into a transaction and receive their earnest money back, then they really don't have any risk in going under contract with you, and they may not be the buyer that you want to work with. So make sure that you're asking how much earnest money is there? Is that an amount that you're comfortable with? And when does it go non-refundable so that you know when that buyer is locked into that contract? Number 4, review the inspection period carefully. The standard inspection period in the state of Arizona is 10 days. If an investor asks you for longer than that, make sure that you understand why they need more time. What do they plan on doing during that time? Are they going to be sending contractors over to get bids? Are they getting repair estimates? Or are they just going to be sending potential end buyers through to take a look at the home? Understanding this gives you an idea of what they're planning to do with the property and how they plan to use that time so that you're not just spending wasted time under contract with a buyer who has no intent to actually purchase the home. Again, there's nothing wrong with working with them if they plan to wholesale the home, but asking these questions gives you a better understanding of who you're working with and hopefully avoids any wasted time or frustration. The next thing to know is that our standard Arizona purchase contract is automatically assignable unless the contract specifically states otherwise. So if you're not comfortable with a buyer that's going to potentially resale, assign, or wholesale that contract, then you want to make sure that you put that into your contract that it's non-assignable. This is generally done by adding language to your purchase contract or to a counter offer. So make sure that you're asking your real estate agent that this language is included, or if it's not, how do we add it in so that we can make sure that that buyer has no right to assign or wholesale that contract. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest protections that Arizona sellers have. In 2022, Arizona passed House Bill 2747, which requires wholesale buyers to disclose in writing that they intend to market or assign their contractual interests before they enter into a binding contract. This disclosure is most commonly found in the additional terms section of the purchase contract or in an addendum, so make sure that you and your agent are reading those sections carefully. If you're ever unsure whether the disclosure that's been made is sufficient, ask your real estate agent or ask an attorney to review that contract with you before you sign. If a buyer who is acting as a wholesaler fails to make the required disclosure, this Arizona law gives you the right to cancel and potentially keep that buyer's earnest money if they don't make the proper disclosures about their intent to wholesale. This is a really huge win for sellers in a world where investors were previously not required to disclose, and therefore we're working with uninformed sellers and canceling without consequence on most of these investment transactions. HB 27 has changed the game for Arizona home sellers, and again is a very important thing to know about and know your rights of. Another thing to watch for is what I call the bait and switch buyer. I'm not trying to scare you, it's just something that I've seen happen enough times over the years that I feel it's worth mentioning. So sometimes when an investor makes an offer, they will then come back during the inspection period or right before closing and ask for a pretty substantial price reduction. Typically, they're going to point to something that they discovered during the inspection period, like roof repairs, HVAC issues, foundation concerns, or just something else that came up unexpectedly. Every buyer has the right to inspect the home and negotiate if legitimate issues come up, but asking the questions that we talked about helps identify buyers who have a solid plan versus buyers who may simply just try to tie up your property while they look for another buyer. The more you understand about who you're working with and how they intend to purchase your home, the better equipped that you'll be to make the right decision for yourself. My last piece of advice is to always have someone representing your interests, especially when you're considering a cash offer. Whether that's a real estate agent or an attorney, just make sure that you're working with someone who has experience handling investor transactions. A knowledgeable professional can help you review the contract, explain your options, and spot any potential issues before they become problems. And they're really just there to look out for your best interests along the way, so it's never a bad thing to have somebody on your side. Selling to an investor doesn't have to be scary. There's a lot of great investors here in Arizona who do exactly what they say they're going to do and provide a fantastic option for sellers who want convenience, certainty, or a quick closing. The key is simply asking the right questions before you sign a contract with an investor. A little due diligence up front can save you weeks of frustration and help you choose the buyer who's actually going to get you to the closing table. If you found this video helpful, be sure to save it so you can come back to these questions anytime you're reviewing a cash offer. And if you know someone who's thinking about selling their home, send this video their way. It might save them from having a really bad experience with a bad investor. My partner Shauna and I post new videos every week to help make Arizona real estate a little easier to understand. So if that's the kind of content you're looking for, we'd love to have you subscribe. And if you're getting ready to sell your home here in Arizona, we'd love the opportunity to help. Please leave a comment below if there's another real estate topic you'd like for us to cover. We're always looking for new ideas, and we'd love to know what interests you the most. And if you're looking to sell your home soon, but curious what you'll really earn for your home sale, go check out my video on the true costs of selling your home, where I break down the costs you can expect to pay when selling. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you over there.